Shwmai eto. Well, we've arrived at last at the final part of our Christmas story. We've heard all about the angels and Mary, Joseph and the baby Jesus, even the shepherds and a few others. It is now, of course, time to think about the wise men that came to worship the King. At about the same time that Jesus was born and laid in a manger in Bethlehem, a new star appeared in the night sky. Most people wouldn't have noticed it, but there were some wise men who studied the stars, who enjoyed looking at the night sky, and they noticed the new star. They looked at their books, they considered the writings to work out what it meant. And then they realized, a king has been born, a new king. We must go and find out where he is, so that we might bring gifts, that we might worship him. The wise men left their lands in the east and followed the star. It led them to the land of Judea. Where would this king be born, they wondered. Well, the palace, of course. Let's go to Jerusalem. And so they did. They arrived at the palace of Herod the king. They asked, where is this king born in this land that we might bring him gifts and worship him? This news worried Herod greatly. After all, he was the king. No baby had been born in these palace walls. Who was this impostor? He wondered. He sent for his own wise men and asked them to look at the prophecies, the writings, to find out where the baby-born king should be born. Eventually they came back to him and said, Bethlehem. That's what the writings say. He who is going to rule over Israel, he who will be a shepherd to the people, the king, he is born in Bethlehem. King Herod returned to the wise men, and he told them that that's where they should go, to Bethlehem. Go and search him out, and tell me, once you have found him, where he is, so that I may also go and worship him. Of course, he had no plans to do any such thing. The wise men, they left Herod and the palace and Jerusalem. As they travelled, they looked up into the night sky again. And there, to their great joy, was the star they'd first seen when they were in the east. Now it was moving across the night sky again. They followed it, and it led them to a place where there was a house. It stopped there. They knocked upon the door, went inside, and found Mary with her young child, Jesus. The star had brought them to the right place. Here was the one that had been born king. The wise men, they bowed down and they worshipped this young child. They brought him gifts too, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. When it was time to leave, the wise men decided not to return to Herod and to the palace in Jerusalem, but rather to go home another way. They had received a warning from God in a dream to do this. When Herod realized that he'd been deceived and that the wise men had not come to tell him exactly where the child, the king child, was, he was angry, really angry. He ordered his soldiers to go down to Bethlehem to find the child for themselves, and if they couldn't find the child, well, to make sure that that child could never become king. Even as the wise men returned to their home in the east, and Herod's anger grew, Joseph had a dream in which the Lord told him, "You need to run. Leave now. Leave for Egypt, for Herod is angry and his soldiers are coming." So the little family, they packed their bags and they left and travelled south to the land of Egypt. For many months the family lived in Egypt as refugees. It wasn't safe to return to their home, not until Herod died. And then once again Joseph received a message from God that it was time to go home. Where would they go? To Bethlehem? No. Jerusalem then? No. Rather to the north, to Nazareth. And in this way, 2 more prophecies were fulfilled. One that said, God will call his son out of Egypt, and another that said that Jesus would be called a Nazarene. Nothing more is known about the young child as he grew, until he was 11 years old, and he and the family went for a visit to Jerusalem. Well, that's another story, a story for another time. So we've come to the end of our story, but really, it's just the beginning. I hope that you've enjoyed these 4 parts of the Christmas story. I hope that you will remember through the Christmas period what is the real reason for this season. It's the birth of Jesus. On behalf of the school, I would like to wish you all a lovely Christmas, a happy and a safe New Year. Nadolig llawen I chi gyd.